1. Round 1. Capture the objective.
勇往直前。
You are safe with me. Take everything from them. I will tear victory from your grasp. They'll see our objective. Devour them.
All right. We'll talk more in depth on it after the game's over, but right now we're just focusing a lot on Monkey, and he's probably just going to be able to tank it a lot with his supports pocketing him, so probably want to try to do something to get to some other characters at the moment who might be easier to kill. Alright, so during that fight, you can see that like we spent literally like an entire whole minute. Yeah, exactly, and then he just doesn't die because he's a tank. So I would recommend trying to find a way to go and get on top of those other characters by like maybe trying to go off to the side, trying to close the distance and get on top of them with the nemesis maybe.
Oh, damn. I forgot fucking Lifeweaver is evil.
Yep.
And yet then again, Ramattra is kind of meh.
Alright, well, you can see how it worked a little bit better in that last round, but still not perfect. We'll go like more in depth on some target priority when we after the game is done, but beyond that, yeah, like really a lot of times with Ramattra, if we're just kind of like sitting there and just poking, like he definitely is able to shoot from a distance, which is good. He's flexible, but if we're just exclusively shooting from a distance, a lot of the times we're just not gonna be able to get enough burst value, right? They're just gonna be able to heal out of it. So his range allows him to be flexible, but he probably also wants to like run in and punch some stuff sometimes.
1. Round 2. Capture the objective.
This bodes well for you. Let's kick this off. It's not your time.
I will give you shelter. I will tear victory from your grasp. You are safe with me. Carelessly devour them. The oldest countries will consume
Yeah. Nice. Good job kind of, just pushing past the Monkey to get on their backline there.
react. Anticipate.
Okay, very nice.
Take everything from them.
All right. Very good time to pop your ultimate, but obviously in that situation we died, right? Dying's not great. Probably a big part of that can be attributed to like not paying attention to your health bar.
Absolutely.
Um, so pushing, just pushing, pushing, pushing. Gotta watch health. Gotta make sure you're staying with your where your teammates can heal you. And then maybe blocking up a little bit more when you see you're taking damage, so we can just stay in there longer.
Let the cute guide you.
Devour them. I will give you shelter.
Please fall off. He's not gonna fall off.
This calculation will cost you everything. Thank you, my sons. You are safe with me. Take everything from them. I will speak to you in the language you understand. Violence. Put them in the ground. The flames of liberation rise. I will give you shelter. Take everything from them. I will bear victory.
I saw that coming the second I did that.
Yep. So, firstly, when you're trying to push in, maybe putting shield forwards further in front of you, because we kind of placed it and then immediately ran past it. As well as running around the, I mean, they're dying because we're running around the corner from our team. So, staying in their line of sight.
You are safe with me. Your miscalculation will cost you everything. Suffer as I have.
Yep, watch the health.
Let the cute guide you.
Okay, very unfortunate. One thing I've noticed is that sometimes we end up swapping off and we stop looking at people even after we get them to like 1 HP.
Yeah.
And that'll be like sometimes it's because they like we think that they got away, but maybe they just like ran around like one corner. So if you just like chase them around that one corner, you could end up securing the kill. But we've done that a couple times where we'll get somebody down really low and then we'll just kind of start looking at something else. So we'll main thing is that you don't want to just like kind of look at this thing and then look at that thing and then look at this thing,
Yeah.
because then we just tickle everybody and then nobody dies. Instead, you want to kind of focus up and get the kill, and then you can actually kill things that way. Really quickly before you get into a game, let's just like go a bit more in depth on some target priority, and then we can go from there. Trying to think if I had anything else besides target priority, but let's start with target priority. I don't know if there's very much else to go in depth on. Um,
I will
so
have
target
it
priority, right? What
reciprocated.
should you be looking at? What should you be shooting at? Generally speaking, the best people for you to shoot at. I mean, you can go more in depth than this, but this is the basics. Is that you want to shoot at the easiest things to kill, because the easiest things to kill will actually die. The hardest things to kill, like we saw in round 1 with Monkey, you'll just shoot him and punch, 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 and then he'll just like stay alive the whole time. And by design, tanks are that harder thing to kill. They have 2 to 3 times the health of other characters. They have shields and tanking abilities and armor, and they get healed the easiest. Overall, very difficult characters to kill in comparison to other characters. So if you have the option, right? So if over here this is, you know, Monkey, and then over there are some other people. If you have the equal opportunity, right, so you can shoot at here or there, then you want to go and shoot at the easier target, right, not the harder one. But then there's also the activity of going and seeking out the easier target, because like Monkey like was in front of you, right? So it might be like this, but if Monkey's just gonna get pocketed through all of your damage, then maybe we just ignore Monkey and go and push these guys, right? As we and to actually try to get some kills that way. And that's not to say that you never shoot at tanks, because you can look at them if they're low, if they're out of position, if they're the only thing that you can shoot at, then go shoot at the tank, right? That's great, because then they are easy targets to kill in those cases. But if not, then probably go shoot at something else. All that makes sense? Any questions on it?
Absolutely, that's fair. I feel like mostly, obviously, like you said, target priority. That's what I need to focus on for Ramattra mainly.
Mm-hmm.
And then good placement for shield.
Yeah. Yep. Sometimes like the problem is that like that was one thing I noticed would be like we're trying to push in and then we're placing shield, like, so like let's say we're trying to get the point over here, we're like placing shield here and then we're like, wait a second, I can't push past this, right? So if you're trying to push forwards and take space, I'd probably recommend putting it up to where you're trying to take. So if I'm trying to push the point and I want to get to that corner here, I can put it on the corner so that it blocks their line of sight up until up until this, right? So just putting it closer. If you know that you're going to be anchoring in a spot for a while, then you can place it at your feet. There's another time where like we like came up and got on point and then placed it at our feet and then like immediately started like going over here, right? But if you know you're going to be like staying on your spot, then you can put it at your feet and then like, work around it.
Yeah.
Vortex for the most part looked pretty good. I didn't see too many problems with that. That looked pretty solid. Nemesis, I think that you were pretty good on that, other than I think most of it wouldn't come down to like the ability usage, but more so like your aggression with it, of when you're pushing, when you're backing. Like sometimes could be, shielding up or blocking up, right? If you have a bunch of people shooting at you, just remembering you're not invincible while you're in it, that sort of thing. But I think that's about it for the moment. Same thing with your Annihilation. Pretty good timing with it, but it was just like that one or two times where like we would go, and then be in the middle of everybody and not be able to survive it. All right, you can probably queue up.
It's just majority is obviously tank, big, here's a word I'm looking for, responsibility. And having to do defense, and you'd see moments where you could play aggressive, but then is your team necessarily capable or able to play as aggressive with you and actually be able to make an impact? Not a good map for Ramattra. I'll see how it goes.
This looks like a team that gets into trouble. Good thing I came along.
This will not be won without sacrifice. Be ready.
Thank you,
No mistakes. No mercy.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attack commencing. Capture objective A.
Nice. When you're up a pick, you can probably play a bit more aggressive, or kind of playing a bit bit reserved when we're up players. Which we will probably go over a bit of aggression scaling here after the game's over. But just like when to know when to push, when to back, things like that.
Yeah.
Positioning healing pylon.
Objective A captured. Escort the payload.
Watch here.
Nice.
I am moving the payload. Join me.
Nice. Good job putting pressure on her.
Don't make excuses.
You are safe with me. Take everything from them.
Very nice.
Everyone, heal up. Hostile mark.
I will give you shelter. Put them in the ground.
Healing pylon deployed.
We will shield you for now. I will speak to you in the language of my mother.
Very nice. A lot better shield placement so far.
I feel like that's what I obviously that and knowing when and how to play aggressive with him because he's kind of like a. It's kind of weird because it's a timed aggression. Because if you play
Yeah.
aggressive too early, you'll get punished for it. If you don't do it fast enough, you won't get any benefit out of it.
Yeah.
Time for the reckoning.
Okay, very good combo. Might be able to just win off of that.
Put them in the ground.
The payload is approaching its
We will
destination.
shield you for now. Greetings.
Good game. Alright, well, let's go over some aggression scaling then. Very good game. Bit better on even some of those spots, those things we were talking about. Alright, so I'm going to send over to you something real quick, little picture here that shows aggression scaling. So basically aggression scaling is a concept, it's a tool that you can use to kind of monitor where you should be at different times at different levels of aggression.
Yeah.
It's essentially, yeah, like I said, it's just a tool. As you get better, you might not even need it because it'll just come a lot more naturally. But to begin, right, you think of aggression as if it were on a scale, with neutral being your 50%. Usually you're starting each fight at your neutral because there's nothing really has happened yet, so you're just coming in your normal. And neutral doesn't mean that you're sitting around doing nothing, and it doesn't mean that you're sprinting in. It just means that you're poking a little bit, right? You're kind of going in, you're going out. You're maybe with Ramattra that look like you're throwing in a vortex, you're shooting, but you're using cover. You're kind of playing passive and like that sort of thing. Super passive is your 0, super aggressive is your 100, and you're going to go up this scale with advantages and with opportunities, and you're going to go down the scale with disadvantages, a lack of resources, and with danger. So to define a couple of those advantages and disadvantages, there's a lot of other things, but the basics for advantages and disadvantages are going to be things like kills. If your team is up a player, go from 50 to 60%. You got 2 people, you go to 70. 3 people go to 80, and so forth. Disadvantages, you're down a person. Maybe you go from 50 to 40. 2 people, 40 to 30. 3 people, 20, and so forth. And then there's also a lot of other advantages and disadvantages that go into the scale as well, right? Things such as which team has better positioning, more health, more ultimates, more abilities, closer spawns, things like that.
Yeah.
Are all going to play into it as well. Opportunities are going to be things like you see someone who's 1 HP, so you're trying to push forwards to capitalize on it. You're being more aggressive. Maybe you push forward to the nemesis to punch the person who's 1 instead of just sitting there. Or it could be someone out of position, or you could have your ultimate, things like that. Um, Lack of resources. Resources are going to be things like your health and your shield, and even like your nemesis form on Ramattra. These aren't things that like if you have them mean that you can go to 100, right? It's not like I have nemesis, I can automatically sprint into the middle of their team. But they certainly do drag you down the scale if you don't have them. They allow you to play aggressive, but they allow for the ability to play aggressive. So if you don't have them, then you can't. So if you're 1 HP, you're probably going to be at a 0. If you don't have a shield, you might not be at a 0, but you're just a little bit more passive than otherwise because you have one less resource to keep you alive. You don't have nemesis, you're a little bit less tanky. Danger, that's going to be things like how many people are shooting at you, how many people are ulting at you, things like that. It's obviously going to be in a lot of danger if 3 people are ulting in your direction, and you probably don't want to try to push into that. So these are all different things. This scale can sometimes be very static, where you come into a fight and you're just staggering the enemy team just over and over and over again. And so you're just at a continuous super aggressive for 25 seconds, right? And it'll just stay flat. But then other times it will be very fluctuating, where it's just going to go all over the place. So you might, like, for example, come into a fight at your 50. You might see, oh, that person's 1 HP. Let me push them. And you play super aggressive, and then you get headshot and melted, and now you're at 1 HP, so you're trying to back up and play passive. So you just went from 50 to 100 to 0 all within a second, and sometimes it can be like that too. You just got to try to stay on top of it and pay attention, and it's a lot of things, but like as you're working at it, it'll become a lot more natural. And one final thing is just noting that aggression is very closely very closely intertwined with awareness, because you have to kind of know what's happening around you to know when to push, when not to push.
Absolutely.
So that's all. It's mostly it for aggression scaling. Any questions? That all make sense?
No, not that I can think of at the current point in time.
Cool. Well, let me know if you do have questions on it. All right. Well, you can probably hop into a game again.
Traveling to Numbani.
Our mission awaits us.
Greetings. I'd say I'm hoping for an easy mission. Don't make this harder than it needs to be.
Do you remember when we sat up at night, counting stars?
Yes. We wondered how many other Omnics were doing the same.
Yes, well, I've learned that too few of them look up at all.
5, 4, 3,
Greetings.
1. Attack commencing. Capture objective A.
feel like another thing I need is learning how to play against specific tanks if I do Ramattra.
Mm-hmm.
Because the difference between playing against one and playing against a different one are
Yeah.
completely different.
Sure. Well, after we're done this game, we can talk about that because we might not have those in game if we're just doing random quick play games. So maybe you can give some examples and we can talk about it.
Yeah.
All right. Sometimes something that's coming up is like just like staying in line of sight of your healers and things like that. So pay attention to where your supports are. Try to position around them. Another big handy thing is request healing when you're low and needing it, because it'll firstly alert your supports, but also let them know where you're at and when you need it.
I will give you shelter. I will tear victory from your grasp. Hostiles approach. You are safe with me.
Okay.
Your miscalculation will cost you everything.
Run for the health pack. Yeah. So maybe there could have like tried to run for health pack sooner. Maybe that one on the inside or this one back there. Besides that, when you're shielding in the middle of a fight like that and you kind of don't really have too much cover to work with, you can try shield dancing. So like like standing on top of your shield and playing around it instead of running away from it. Which seems to be something we're doing sometimes. If we just like kind of plop it and then we like move away from where it's at.
Yeah.
Okay, very nice. If that got any hairier, we maybe could have even used the
Yeah.
ult when like Genji was coming in blading. But we won it, so. Good job focusing the Mercy.
Escort the payload.
Don't push me when my back's to the wall.
With the payload, Bugamish.
Devour them.
Mark the health. Yeah, I think they kind of assassinated your backline there. So, I think you did a good job vortexing the Doomfist early on. Theoretically, you could maybe try to play for the kind of peel for your supports and maybe a little bit more in your backline as an idea, or even just running in quicker with your ult.
Failure is not defeat.
Your end is within my reach.
Tactical visor. Point here. Prepare yourself. I am moving the payload. Join me. Irritation. Your miscalculation will cost you everything.
Dim as the night.
One of our enemies is being revived. The payload must be defended.
Understandable, throw
My ultimate is ready.
Your end is within my reach.
Over there. Hostile mark. Enemy contact. Get into the field. Stay
That Discord orb is always just a problem.
Yep. I think we'll also talk after the game a bit about positioning and cover and things like that, as well as talking about your different playing up against different tanks.
Let them out.
Somewhere behind you when you punched her. That was
I have no clue unless she like teleported in front of me.
Hello.
like I heard her voice come from behind when she died.
The payload has reached the checkpoint.
Enemy over there!
Take everything from them.
Fucking Discord orb.
A battle lost for a war won.
Enemy here. Complete.
Payload needs to be moved.
Yeti, reporting in.
Put them in the ground.
Hey.
The payload must be defended.
Go time!
Meteor strike.
Good to see you. Hello.
The payload moves.
Put them in the ground.
Okay, good old.
Into the iris.
Okay. There, our whole team was like kind of backing up for Blade, and we were kind of like on cart, so we were kind of out of line of sight teammates, pretty far forwards. Maybe if like Genji's swinging on you, could try blocking it.
Yeah.
What has impeded the mission?
I think sometimes like sustaining and staying alive is an issue, which we'll
Yeah.
cover that when we talk about positioning. So let's do positioning, and then we can talk about different matchups after that. I don't think that your positioning's bad all the time. I think that it's just like an inconsistent thing where like some of the times you do pretty good with it and you like ride cart in and things like that, but then other times I'm finding that you're just like a little bit too out in the open a lot of the time. So let's talk
I
about
have
some.
my moments, absolutely.
Yep. So let's talk about that real quick. So if I'm standing right here and the enemy team's all the way over there and they're all looking and shooting at you, it's gonna take about like let's say even with Nemesis, but let's say we don't have it, right? It's gonna take 1, 2, 3 seconds to get around a corner. Now from here you can't shoot through solid objects, so we're all fine and dandy, and we can do a lot of the same stuff from here, but in that time it took us to walk here. He ended up dying because it was just too far on the open. Whereas if we're right here, right, we can do a lot of the same stuff, but it takes you half a second to duck behind the corner, right? 6 times faster than when it just took us right here. So therefore, good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover. The further away we stray from it, the worse off you're going to be. The great news is that cover's all over the place. You have slopes like so. You have pillars that you can use in between while you're reloading, in between shots, in between punches. You can be using it, like so, right? That kind of thing. You can be using pillars and corners to the same thing. Random objects like the payload. I saw you using the payload, which is good. Pillar, corner, doorway, corner, doorway. It's kind of all over the place. Top of that, high grounds, which I saw you taking high grounds on certain points. So that was really good too. But high grounds, they can see you. Now they can't. See you. Now they can't. Right? You have lots of visibility. Most characters in the game can't reach you unless they take the stairs, which is additional survivability as well. You can see over here, here, here. Whereas on the low ground, really can't see over there. Can't see over there, and you can't see any of the high ground. So you get a lot of visibility and survivability on high grounds. So big primary thing I'd say is that you were inconsistent with was just like just being out in the open, where like we would like start off behind the cart and then we just like go and like stand on top of it or push in front of the cart, and then we just be like standing there, and then we just stand there getting shredded when you could just be playing from the corner. And when you're pushing from, instead of just like running straight at them, pushing using cover, so we can push, cover, right, while we're engaging on them, instead of just like kind of standing over here out in the open. All different ways. Same kind of concept as like when we're placing the shield, and we can shield dance and move to either side of our shield, but instead you like kind of place it and run away from it. That all makes sense. Any questions on it?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. What were different tank matchups that you feel like you struggle up against?
Obviously, Doomfist, because he's very strange to go against, mostly because of how survivable he is.
Yeah.
In the weirdest situations.
Yeah. Well, and then I imagine like one of the big questions is just like, when do you like turn around and try to defend your team and shoot at him, and when do you just like ignore him and shoot at their team, and things like that. Like, when do you push or when do you defend? I think part of that's going to depend on the stage of the fight you're in. So like, are you just kind of like in the poke phase and Doomfist is kind of running in, or are you like actually in the action? But I think a bigger part is Doomfist overextending, or does he have team support? If Doomfist is kind of just like solo pushing into your team, then of course turn and look at him. You can even maybe like try to like shield off his healers while you look at him, turn around to look at him potentially. You can maybe try to throw a little vortex at him so he slows down and it's harder for him to move around. But you can look at him if he isn't going to have a lot of support. If he's just getting it pocketed by his whole team as he pushes into your team, then it might be better to try to push into his team instead. But also kind of depends on like the situation. Like, maybe their team's not even in range of you right now. Like, if their team's all the way over there and Doomfist is on you over here, then this is a situation where like you can't really push to them. But like, if you're all the way, oh, I didn't mean to do that, but if let's say Doomfist is pushing into your team and you're right here, well, maybe we can be pushing into their team and blocking them, because then your team can kind of by putting pressure on them, now Doomfist is getting less heals, he's not getting team support, and then now your team can all look at him if you're distracting them properly. But you obviously want to make sure that you're not running in and feeding, because you might not have healing of your own if
Yeah.
Doomfist is on your healers. So you got to be careful about it. But yeah, it's kind of about reading the situation and how close are you to their team, how close is like Doomfist into your team. Is he by himself? Is he with his team? Things like that. Does that kind of make sense?
Absolutely.
Cool. Were there any other characters?
Zarya, kind of.
Zarya. Well, it's an interesting matchup. Obviously a big thing is going to be don't shoot at her bubbles unless you think you can kill her through it. Right? That's the only time you want to like try to shoot at them, is if you think you can just shred through her bubbles and then kill her. Otherwise, you're just feeding your ult charge. Besides that, with Azaria, I mean, like, she's kind of going to be frontlining for her team, so I don't know. I'd say you're probably playing that similar to like if you're playing like against a Junker Queen or something like that, or a Roadhog maybe with like similar range, or maybe an Orisa, like where she's just gonna be trying to beam you down. Make sure you're using cover, use your shield. If you know, be careful when you're pushing in that you're not just pushing into a full charge Zarya and like getting too ahead of yourself and thinking you're gonna be fine, and then you get shredded. So main thing is, but I'd say she's pretty standard in that like it's not. She's pretty straightforward, right? She's gonna stand in front of her team. She's gonna try to bubble things that you're running at. So avoid the bubbles. Try not to give her her bubble charge. Play around her bubbles. So try to like push when she doesn't have them. So I wouldn't try to run in with Nemesis if you know that she has 2 bubbles. But if she's just used both of them, well then maybe you can push in with Nemesis and she won't have anything to stop you with it. Use cover, things like that. Any other specific questions about that?
Not necessarily. No.
Yeah, a lot of the Zarya is just gonna be playing around her bubbles, and then pushing, when you're able to push, and not running into all of her damage.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Most of them are genuinely understandable. So not necessarily.
Gotcha.
No, not really.
Really? Any other like DPS or supports? Or just the tank matchups and were concerning you?
Mostly tank matchups, because everyone else I can. Because usually, obviously, I'm not gonna mostly play alone. I'll usually have 3 or 4 other people with me, so we'll be able to actually communicate stuff that's going on.
Gotcha.
So most DPS they're usually able to deal with quickly, and then I help when if it's needed. Other than that, it's just mostly being able to solo a tank fight without having to rely on them 80% of the time.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, a lot of times right now, especially if you're playing with other teammates, something I might recommend is trying to coordinate focus fire, because that's like right now I think that with the changes they just made the game a bit more team oriented than it was before. Because things die a little bit slower and you have less ultimates to work with and things like that, and the fights are just taking a little bit longer. Being coordinated with who you're shooting at is really powerful, especially with the DPS passive as well. And getting 20% damage reduction, healing reduction on people. That's gonna be really powerful. So something as simple as just like calling who you're shooting at, right, as a tank, because tanks are pretty consistent with who they're shooting at, right? Like DPS, like you might have a tracer like all the way in their back line and she can't really call for the whole team to shoot at something. But if the tank's shooting at something, a lot of times the team can follow up on it. So just like saying, usually you like repeat them, so you can say Ana, Ryan, Lucio, Tracer, right? Things like that. Just call them out, and that can try to get your teammates kind of on board with what you're shooting at, and can melt things quicker. All right.
Understandable.
Cool. Let's go over the main points, do a review, and kind of wrap up the session, and then, you know, if by the end you have any more questions, maybe we'll have like an extra minute or two for it. All right, abilities, shield usage. If you're pushing, place it up ahead of you, not like on top of you, right? Because then you can actually go and take all of that space. I think you have pretty decent timing with when you're using your shields. Like you're not just like sometimes you're putting them up for nothing, but that's not like an all the time thing. Just make sure that you're obviously not putting it up when nobody's shooting at you, when no ultimates or abilities are coming your direction. You want to use it when you and your teammates feel pressured, right? Or when you're taking space or you're backing up. You don't want to use it just for everyday random spam damage. But put it up closer. If you're putting it on yourself, don't immediately like run away from it. Use it. Obviously, if it was like a bad shield and it's not going to do anything for you, then leave it. But if you're in the middle of a fight, don't just run away from it. Use it and shield dance in between it so they can block you from taking damage. Vortex, I think you did pretty solid with. No problems there. Nemesis, you know, watch and block a hair more. Besides that, I don't think there were too many other problems with it. I think it had pretty good timings with when to use it and when not to use it. I think that just there's aggression things that came in. Overall abilities, I'd say, were like probably around maybe like a higher end of a low to medium priority for you to work on. So lower down on the list, but ultimate usage, I think your timing is pretty good. Just make sure you're not getting too far ahead of yourself and like sprinting into their whole team with it. Some fights we are holding on to it, so just remember that like ults that aren't used don't get any value. So if they come in and they ult and we don't, well, you know, then they just are going to have the advantage and you might just, you know, you'll have to hold on to it. Whereas the more you use your ultimate, the more ultimates you'll have per game. So just obviously don't use it in terrible situations, but also do your best to try to actually use it if you have it, because if you go fights without using it, it's not going to do anything. You're going to get less value overall, get less ultimates in your game overall. But besides that, just watch playing over aggressive, use cover, block, things like that. Overall, that was probably around the same, probably like higher end of a low to medium. Then next comes mechanics. Think about target priority. Target priority is a pretty big thing. Don't shoot at the tanks and the harder things to shoot at if they're not gonna die. Even like think about how even amongst the squishier characters, there's easier and harder things to kill. Right, like a Hanzo will be much harder to kill, or much easier to kill than like a Lucio. Tracer, much harder to kill than like an Ana. So just think about things like that. Go for the easy things to kill. Shoot at and actively seek them out. Shoot at the harder things if they are low, out of position, or if they're the only thing you can shoot at. Besides that, I think generally the rest of the mechanics were pretty good. I don't think we talked about anything else besides target priority. But target priority in general is probably like a medium priority. Then next came positioning. Positioning, make sure you're using cover. Good positioning is the usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover. And that's probably the biggest one in positioning. I don't think that you were misranged. I mean, you also make sure you're using high grounds, but you took high grounds a decent bit too. I think that's probably the biggest one, was just make sure you're using cover as you're pushing, as you're backing, as you're just sitting there. Don't just be out in the open. And overall, that one was probably a medium priority as well. And then finally came awareness/aggression. Make sure you're paying attention to your health bar. Sometimes we're not noticing it while we're pushing, and then all of a sudden, oopsie, you're like 10 HP and and you're in the middle of their team. So gotta watch it, pay attention. request healing, back up, play in line of sight with their teammates. That was maybe another thing that goes to positioning, is make sure you're playing in line of sight with your teammates. Pay attention to where they're at, right, and
Yeah.
play around them. Sometimes we'd like our supports to be right here, and then we'd like run around the corner and line and get out of line of sight of them. So make sure you pay attention, stay in their line of sight, request healing, pay attention to where the enemy team is. Kind of pay attention to, like we talked about, things like watch how the Doom is playing, if he's feeding or if his teammates are watching him. So pay attention to where the enemy team is. Pay attention to kind of kill feed and the flow of the fight, and then how all of that impacts your aggression. So when should you push, when should you back? You have your the whole chart with you, but it's 0% super passive, 50% neutral, 100% super aggressive. You get more aggressive with opportunities and advantages, and you get more passive with disadvantages, lack of resources, and with danger. And overall awareness was probably awareness/aggression. Sorry, that's probably a bigger one. Maybe like a higher end of a medium, not significantly higher than the rest, but still probably a bit higher. So to put that all in order, number 1 came to awareness/aggression. Number 2 probably goes to, let's just say target priority, because that can probably change a bit easier, right? That can be like one of the easier things, because it's just kind of a mentality swap. And then positioning is number 3, and then number 4 we can like tie that up at abilities/ultimates.
Yeah.
And that is about it. Any final questions on anything?
No.
No? Okay. Well, I'll get